There was an old legend in the quiet town of Blackwood. People whispered about a train that appeared only once every year, exactly at midnight. It never arrived early. It never arrived late. And according to the stories, anyone who stepped aboard would never return the same person. Most people laughed at the legend. Some believed it. But nobody had ever dared to find out the truth. 16-year-old Ethan had heard the story since he was a child. His grandfather used to tell him, some doors should never be opened, and some trains should never be boarded. At the time, Ethan thought it was just another bedtime story. Now, standing alone on the empty train platform after his grandfather's passing, those words echoed in his mind. Rain gently tapped against the old station roof. The rusty clock hanging above the platform slowly ticked toward midnight. The station had been abandoned for nearly 30 years. No trains stopped here anymore. No lights remained except one old lantern flickering in the cold wind. Ethan tightened his backpack and checked his phone. No signal. Just silence. The air suddenly became colder. A thick blanket of fog rolled across the empty tracks. The world around him disappeared into white mist. Then, a distant whistle. Long. Low. Haunting. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The sound grew louder. The tracks beneath his feet began to shake. Metal screamed against metal. Out of the darkness emerged an enormous black steam train unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Its body looked older than history itself. Golden symbols glowed across its sides. Its giant headlights pierced through the fog like two glowing eyes. Yet, there was no driver. The train slowly came to a stop directly in front of him. The doors opened with a loud creak. Warm golden light spilled onto the empty platform. No one stepped out. No conductor. No passengers. Only silence. Ethan knew he should leave. Every instinct told him to run. But something deep inside him whispered, "Get on." Almost without thinking, he climbed the steps. The doors slammed shut behind him. The train immediately began moving. Faster. And faster. Ethan rushed to the nearest window. Outside. The station was gone. The town had vanished. Instead of roads and buildings, endless darkness stretched in every direction. Tiny glowing stars floated beneath the train instead of above it. It was no longer traveling on ordinary tracks. It was crossing a sky that seemed to exist outside of time itself. Inside the train, everything looked frozen. Elegant wooden seats lined the cabin. Old brass lamps cast a soft golden glow. Dust floated through the air like tiny diamonds. Then Ethan noticed something strange. He wasn't alone. Dozens of passengers sat perfectly still. An old man reading a newspaper whose pages were completely blank, a woman holding a bouquet of flowers that never wilted. A young soldier staring silently out the window. None of them blinked. None of them spoke. It was as if time itself had stopped inside the train. Then, from the far end of the carriage, a small girl wearing a white dress slowly turned her head toward Ethan. She smiled. And whispered only 4 words. "You're finally here, Ethan." Ethan froze. His name echoed through the silent carriage like a whisper carried by the wind. The little girl stood up slowly, still holding her old teddy bear. Her pale blue eyes seemed strangely familiar, as if she had known him for years. "You know my name?" Ethan asked, his voice shaking. The girl nodded. "We've been waiting for you." Before Ethan could ask another question, the train suddenly lurched. The lights flickered. A deep rumble rolled beneath the floor. Outside the windows, the stars disappeared. In their place stretched a dark, endless forest filled with towering black trees. Their twisted branches clawed at the sky like giant hands. "What is this place?" Ethan whispered. "The forest of forgotten souls," the girl replied softly. "Everyone on this train has something they never let go of. Fear, regret, guilt, or loss." Ethan looked around at the silent passengers. The old man still stared at his blank newspaper. The soldier remained motionless. The woman continued holding her flowers. "They're trapped?" Ethan asked. The girl nodded. "They cannot leave until they face the truth." The train whistle screamed through the darkness. Suddenly, every lamp inside the carriage went out. Pitch black silence swallowed everything. Only the little girl's teddy bear glowed with a faint golden light. Then, a loud scratching sound came from the roof. Scratch. 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 Something heavy crawled above them. The passengers didn't react. It was as if they couldn't hear it. Ethan's breathing became faster. "What?" Is that? The little girl's smile disappeared. You must not look outside. But curiosity was stronger than fear. Ethan slowly turned toward the nearest window. A gigantic shadow creature raced beside the train. It had glowing white eyes, impossibly long arms, and a body made entirely of living darkness. Its claws scraped against the train, sending sparks flying into the night. The monster smiled. And then, it looked directly at Ethan. The creature let out an earth-shaking roar. The train shook violently. Windows cracked. Suitcases fell from the overhead shelves. The shadow monster slammed one enormous hand against the side of the carriage. Boom. Another window shattered. An icy wind exploded inside. Passengers finally moved. Not by running, but by slowly turning their heads toward Ethan. Every pair of eyes stared at him. Blank. Cold. Expressionless. Almost together, they whispered the same sentence. It has found you. The little girl grabbed Ethan's hand. Run. They sprinted through the narrow hallway as the monster smashed through another carriage behind them. Wood splintered. Metal twisted. The train groaned under the creature's unbelievable strength. At the end of the hallway stood a single golden door. Unlike every other door on the train, this one shimmered with strange symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The girl stopped. This is the memory room. Ethan reached for the glowing handle. What happens if I open it? The little girl looked into his eyes. You'll discover why this train chose you. And why the shadow has been waiting for your arrival. Behind them, the monsters were echoed once again. It was getting closer. Much closer. Taking a deep breath, Ethan wrapped his fingers around the golden handle. And slowly pushed the door open. The golden door creaked open. A warm light poured into the dark hallway, forcing the shadow creature to stop for just a moment. Ethan stepped inside. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen. Thousands of glowing memories floated through the air like tiny stars. They surrounded him, slowly spinning in complete silence. As he reached out to touch one, the memory came to life. He saw himself as a little boy, laughing with his grandfather beside an old lake. Another memory appeared. His grandfather was standing at this very train station years ago, staring at the same mysterious train. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew about this place. The little girl quietly nodded. Your grandfather rode this train many years ago. But why? To save someone he loved. More memories appeared around them. Ethan watched his grandfather standing inside this very carriage, facing the same terrifying shadow creature. Instead of running, he stood his ground. The shadow whispered to him. Give me your greatest fear. And I will let the others go. Without hesitation, his grandfather accepted. He sacrificed his own peace so that everyone else could return home. Since that night, the train had been waiting for someone brave enough to finish what he had started. Ethan lowered his head. My grandfather never abandoned me. He was protecting you. At that very moment, the shadow monster crashed through the golden door. The room shook violently. Darkness spread across the glowing memories, swallowing them one by one. The creature towered over Ethan, its glowing white eyes burning with hatred. You belong to me now, it growled. Fear rushed through Ethan's body. His hands trembled. His legs refused to move. Then he remembered his grandfather's words. The strongest people are not those who never feel fear. They are the ones who keep walking despite it. Ethan took one slow step forward. Then another. The shadow screamed. It grew larger, feeding on his fear. But Ethan didn't stop. I am not afraid anymore, he said firmly. I forgive myself. I forgive the past. And I choose hope. A brilliant golden light exploded from his chest. The entire train shook. The shadow creature let out one final roar before its body cracked into thousands of tiny pieces of light. Within seconds, it disappeared forever. The darkness lifted. The broken train transformed into something beautiful. The old wooden walls became bright and new. The silent passengers slowly smiled. The old man folded his newspaper. The soldier stood proudly. The woman placed her flowers on an empty seat. One by one, they faded into golden light and peacefully disappeared. The little girl smiled at Ethan. Our journey is finally over. She hugged her teddy bear tightly. Thank you. Then she vanished like morning mist. The train gently slowed to a stop. The doors opened. Ethan stepped onto the same quiet station where his adventure had begun. The sun was rising. Birds sang in the distance. Everything looked ordinary. But Ethan knew he would never be the same. As he turned to look back, the train had disappeared. Only one old pocket watch rested on the platform. Inside its cover was a simple message written in his grandfather's handwriting. The greatest journey is never across the world. It is through your own heart. From that day forward, Ethan never feared the unknown again. Because sometimes, the darkest journey leads to the brightest destination. And somewhere beyond the edge of time, the last train at midnight still waits for the next soul brave enough to board.